Hello, guys. Um, Today, I want to provide an alternative conception of the nation state. Uh, if you listen to the news, you hear talk about Catalonia and their referendum for independence. You hear the Kurds in Iraq. You hear about Biafrans in Nigeria. You hear about various nationalist groups across the world agitating for independence. Um, when you listen to discussion around it, we often talk about the state as if it was a real entity, as if the borders of the state were sacred. Okay, we throw around the word sovereignty. We say the state is sovereign, and when we say the state is sovereign, we are really saying that uh, the borders are unnegotiable and non-negotiable. We are acting as if the state had existed from eternity and ought to exist till eternity. But a brief look at history will show that this borders of the state are really arbitrary. If you look at Africa, for instance, many of the states in Africa were created by the colonials. They just shared up the land arbitrarily and created new states. In Europe, you see the rise and fall of empires and the borders of states receding and expanding accordingly. So the perimeters of the states really are I think they're an intersubjective reality. The state itself is a social construct. We only believe the state only exists because we all have a shared belief that these are the borders of the state, these are the boundaries of the state, these are the authorities that are legitimate in the state. And this is why the state exists. The state is like money. Money has no value in itself. If we cannot just take a random piece of paper and the money is really a random piece of paper that we all have a shared belief has value, and that is why it has value. And so, if we understand that the state is a social construct, we have to then ask ourselves what the purpose of the state is. Why do we need states in the first place? Because if the state has no reason for existence, we might as well do away with it. And in my opinion, I think that we can derive the purpose and the function of the state by understanding human nature, by observing the world and looking at how people live. There's this thing the founders called the pursuit of happiness. I feel like every individual, everybody is looking for a way to optimize their own happiness. They're looking out for their self interest. People are competing in the world to advance themselves. And sometimes we often need to work together. Two people can work together because it gives them an advantage. It makes achieving their goals easier. And I think this is the basic reason why we need states. Because obviously, if there are 100 people in the room, the optimal configuration for advancing self interest might not necessarily be that all 100 people act as members of the same team. The optimal configuration will be that people with similar interests move closer to each other and work together to achieve their aims. And so, in a world of how many people? 7 billion? People often form units to advance their interests in the world, and that's what we call the state. And of course, there are other units too, like many states form alliances with other states, but the basic unit, the tightest unit, is the nation state. Okay, so this leads me to my first point about what I think the state ought to be. I think the state ought to be an alliance of convenience. When I say an alliance of convenience, it is that I am a member of a state because it advances my interests. If it fails to advance my interests, then I should have the right to no longer be a member of the state. I should have the right to migrate to another state. And I think that's something that's obtainable in the world today. But when we look at it from that perspective, it also applies to collectives of people. If a collective of people are, if the alliance is no longer convenient for a collective of people, then it follows that such people should be free to secede from the state. The second point, and when these people secede, they should be free to have an independent state or join another state. The second characteristic of a state, of what the state ought to be, It's an alliance of mutual consent.